Howdy, everyone. This is Tad Stevens on the Micro Secrets podcast, where we focus on business psychology and marketing and how all that stuff works together. Today, this is our first episode, and I want to make a big deal out of it because it's really cool for us, and I'm really happy that we have Frank King, who is the mental health comedian who wrote for The Tonight Show for 20 years, 5 TEDx talks, and actually lost to a duck puppet on Star Search. Frank?
You had to bring
That's
it
good.
up.
That's good. How are you doing? Take a minute. Tell us a little bit about yourself that I missed.
Well, and oftentimes people on the podcast go, so how you surviving the pandemic? Well, here's the deal, Ted. I've had 2 aortic valve replacements, a double bypass, a heart attack, 3 stents, and as you just mentioned, I lost to a duck puppet on Star Search. So this is not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And on the 8th of September, there was a wildfire within a mile and a quarter of our house. We had to evacuate for 2 weeks. We figured the whole thing was going to burn down. Fortunately, thanks to the volunteer firefighters and the National Guard that got sent down from Portland, they saved the neighborhood. But yeah, we spent 2 weeks in a hotel hoping the house wouldn't burn. We were in the middle of refinancing the house. And I said to my mortgage broker, listen, I've got a kind of a business etiquette question for you. If when we're signing the paperwork at the title company, they don't ask me if it's burned down, do I have to tell them? She said, no, you got insurance, don't tell them.
That works.
We didn't have to do that.
Well, I'm glad that didn't happen. We don't have it quite that way. We get all the smoke from y'all's fires and the ones in California here in Colorado. So like today, it's medium smoky here, but we don't have all the other stuff that goes along with it. We're just thankful.
We had the smoke, the air quality index for the EPA, 49 parts per million and below is healthy. Anything above 49, between 49 and 300 is hazardous. The chart stops at 300. And we were over 600 parts per million for a week, literally off the charts.
I follow you guys. I follow you on the smoke map, and you're the not good color around your area in Oregon.
Okay, Ted, you follow smoke maps. I'm guessing you're single.
No, I just live in a place that's got a lot of smoke. But no, actually my wife does too, and I report to her every couple of days on what it's like.
Well, good thing you found each other, because that
we're a pair.
Profile is probably going to kill your chances.
No, I agree. Totally agree. Okay, let's get started. I got a couple questions I'd like to ask. Because these are things I believe that our listeners are going to encounter in their journey, that they're on the project, campaign, business, whatever it is that they're doing. So the first one is, what is one business or life decision that you could change if you could? It doesn't have to be a big one, just one that you think, oh, this would be cool. What would I do different?
The best advice I ever got in business, and I ignored, when I started comedy the day after Christmas in 1985. I asked my girlfriend, now my wife of 33 years, look, I'm going on the road to do stand-up, and I've got 10 weeks booked, and do you want to come along? Figuring she'd say no. And she said yes. Yeah, so we quit our jobs, gave up the apartment, put all our stuff in storage that we couldn't fit into my tiny little Dodge Colt, and we were on the road for 2,629 nights in a row, nonstop.
Wow.
Yeah, in addition to playing the Comedy Works in Denver, and I guess there was one in Fort Collins at the time. Anyway, somewhere in there, I had joined the National Speakers Association in San Diego, because we were living in San Diego before we hit the road. And Sandra Schrift, who had a little speakers bureau, said to me, Frank, you can be a speaker and a comedian. Speaker and a comedian, but being a comedian, as comedians are wired. No, I'm a comic. I'm a club comic. I'm not a speaker. Well, Tad, if I had taken that advice in 1985, I'd be living in a much larger house. Yeah, because what's the difference between a corporate comedian and a club comedian? About $5,000 a day plus travel. If I could change one business decision. Oh, and can I give you a couple more?
Sure.
Is that possible? And this is something they preach in NSA. NSA is a National Speakers Association. They have chapters in every state. Colorado has a great chapter, very strong. And they, one of the things they always push is pick a lane. Jane Atkinson, who's a speaker coach, I think that's her phrase, pick a lane. In other words, don't be everything to everybody. You know, I talk to speakers, I've got 9 keynotes. Oh, dear God. We need to narrow that down. So, and I didn't have that many. I had a networking keynote, and because of my cardiac issues, I had a cardiac keynote and an inspirational keynote. But when in January 2018, when I decided to pick one keynote, to pick a lane, I picked suicide prevention as my lane. And so that'd be the second piece of advice, pick a lane. You know why, Ted? Because I had belonged to a couple of chambers of commerce here in Eugene, Springfield area. When I first moved here, I didn't know anybody. And so I thought chamber would be a great way to get to know a lot of people very quickly.
Sure.
And so I looked around at some of the chamber members who were the most successful in business. And I thought, what do they have in common? And what they have in common is they all do one thing extremely well. Supposedly, somebody asked Warren Buffett and Steve Jobs or somebody else, in one word, secret to your success. And both of them said the same word, focus. So I was always, bright, shiny objects always distracted me. Side hustles, you can make money doing this. So January 1, 2018,
oh yeah,
all side hustles, no side hustles. And I began to speak on suicide prevention. And then the NSA folks say this: the riches are in the niches.
Absolutely.
So rather than be a suicide prevention speakers in the world, I looked around for occupations in the top 10 occupations that have the highest risk of suicide, and are wanting to do something about it. An ideal client is someone, for me, is someone who has an annual meeting. They use outside speakers. They have money to pay my fee. And most importantly, they have a bleeding need for what I have to tell them. So dentists were my first niche market because they're not the highest rate of suicide. That's the good news. Bad news is they're in the top 10. And they're working very hard to do something about it. So I picked dentists. And veterinarians have a very similar business model to dentists, and they began to work on their suicide rate. And then physicians, we lose one physician every day in the U.S. to suicide. And construction leads the league in suicides. They have
construction.
The most suicides. Yep.
Really? I wouldn't have guessed that.
Well, because 8 out of 10 suicides in the U.S. right now are men. And construction is a male-heavy business.
It's really male-dominated. Yeah.
And tough males, the kind in the South.
Yeah.
Big boys don't.
I used to do it. So yeah, no, I know the type.
Yeah, male toxicity they call it. Big boys don't cry, don't share your emotions, don't get a colonoscopy, and then project managers, because in a construction field, project or safety managers. So I picked 5 niche markets and dive. NSA says go deep, not wide.
Right.
So if you're at home listening to the podcast and you type in suicide prevention speakers, plural, dental, you'll find that I have at least five or six organic listings on page 1 Google. That's the benefit of going deep, not wide. So if somebody types in, some dental group somewhere, the Rhode Island Association of Dentistry, they type in suicide prevention speakers dental, they're going to look at the page and go, dear God, this must be the guy.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The thing I always tell people is, if you've got a headache behind your left ear and you go into the store and you have headache medicine behind the left ear, which one are you going to pick?
Yeah, exactly. So first piece of advice I ignored, the change I didn't make was I should have, because my act was very clean. So it was HR friendly, corporate friendly. I could have done both comedy clubs and corporate gigs. Second thing was I waited way too long to pick a lane. But the reason I picked it, there's a good reason why I didn't get there earlier. And then the third thing is, once I picked a lane, I went looking for my ideal client. Michael Porch wrote a book called Book Yourself Solid.
Yes.
And it's just fill in the blank how to, make sure the only people you're working with are the ones, if you ran a really high-end nightclub, you would let pass the velvet rope. That's his thing, the velvet rope. And so that's where I am. And I'm beginning to achieve the benefit of that business-wise, Tab, is, you don't, when you start in speaking, you're a commodity. I'm a motivational speaker. Well, they're a dime a dozen. So you're a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
As a suicide prevention speaker, as the mental health comedian, it's beginning to happen where people don't just want a mental health or suicide prevention speaker. They come looking for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I work with other speakers. I coach speakers with both TEDx and speaker marketing. I said, that's what we're trying to achieve is when they want someone to speak on narcolepsy, then you need to be, they don't just want any narcolepsy, sleep speaker. They want you. So that's the benefit of picking a lane and then niching your marketing so that you become in that niche, the guy or the gal.
I can totally understand and attest to that. I mean, I'm a shiny object syndrome convert for 10 years, and I still catch myself, looking online for things when I should be doing something else. But that is one of the biggest things that's helped me over the years is focus, pick a lane, niche down, everything you just said. And I can't tell you how many people want to be everything for everybody, and I've yet to see anybody be successful at it. So totally agree there.
I'm 2 courses away. I should have gone to summer school in Chapel Hill. I was 2 courses away from a degree in economics. And one of the things to talk about in economics is opportunity cost. When you choose one thing, chances are you giving up something else. So speakers, because they think, well, listen, if I pick a lane and then niche myself, I won't be able to speak on all these other things. I lose business in these other categories. And I said, yeah,
right.
Short run perhaps, but long run. Again, when you become the guy or the gal who does that, I talk about to my speaker coaching clients about their website. I go, you need a speaker only website, or if you're a speaker trainer or speaker coach, but they need to land there on your homepage, and because they're looking for a speaker in a particular area. And when they land on, when you land on my homepage tab of my website, The Mental Health Comedian, it screams nothing but suicide prevention speaker. There's a drop down for, corporate comedy and some other things, but the website screams. And for dental, for veterinary, for doctors, there's a page /dental/doctors/veterinary. So
absolutely.
If they go look and they end up on that page, oh, he's a suicide prevention speaker for veterinarians. My last gig, woman typed in an osteopathic anesthesiologist convention. They typed in suicide prevention speaker osteopaths, and up I came on.
And you came up. Now that's niche. God. That is niche. Well done.
There is a guy.
There's a guy for this.
Yeah, and that's why they hired me. And
yeah.
So that's it. And last piece of advice, and this happens all the time with my speaker clients. I go, well, what's your URL? Well, it's frankking.com. That's great if people know who you are. If they don't know who you are, you need to begin to brand. And I tell my speakers, here's how you brand. If you have a book, the name of the book should be your .com or .whatever.
Right.
So you have the URL, the book. The podcast should have the same name. If you're going to do a TED Talk, the TED Talk should have that name in there somewhere. There's 4 things that have your brand in them, so that when people go looking for you, like somebody says, there's a comedian who does suicide prevention. Anybody know his name? No. We'll just type in like mental health and comedian, see what comes up. That's what we're after. So that your brand comes up, because they may not remember your name, but they can often remember a catchy brand.
And and if you do what you just said, you will be multiple places, and Google will notice that as relevance, and they will list one or another or all of them.
And content. I have 3 podcasts going, 2 comedy, mental health, and 1 straight up comedy. And the audio goes up on, Spreaker, and then out to Google Podcasts and iTunes or whatever. And then I put the video up on YouTube, because YouTube transcribes it immediately. So does Google Podcasts.
Yeah.
You got audio search capability and text search capability with my name and all those keywords over and over and over. And then I guest star. I tell my speaking clients, whether they're whatever they're doing, whatever their specialty is, you need to guest on podcasts like you and I are doing at least twice a week. And I probably guest on a half a dozen podcasts a week. because you, Tad, have to do the heavy lifting on this podcast. I don't
Yeah,
have that.
I need to get on more guest, or I need to be a guest on more, and it's something I've started, but it is on my list and it needs to move up because I totally agree.
Well,
And I've heard that from multiple people is that if you're going to do a podcast, you need to guest. You need to be a guest on others as well.
yeah, because they put it up, send you a link, and you put it up on your social media, so you get twice the SEO hit. And let me give your listeners, watchers, whatever, a tip. Podcasters, podcast guests, plural, podcastguests.com. I pay $29 a month. I built a profile. And so people have found me looking for a mental health speaker to be on their podcast. And every Monday morning, they send out a list of 8 people, roughly, that want to be on a podcast. And I hit that list about every 2 months. And then below that, 8 podcasts looking for guests. So I scroll through the ones looking for guests to see if any of them happen to, mental health is a decent fit.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm doing probably 4 to 6 guest spots and 3 of my own podcasts a week.
Okay, that is a super resource. I'll make sure that gets in the show notes. So podcastguests.com.
Guest.com. Yeah, pay it's like $13 is the basic. Pay the $29. You get a nicer profile. You get more visibility, and you can also go in. Let's say I was short a guest. Go in. I type in mental health, and up comes everybody in the podcast. On that site who do mental health, and I can reach out to them and say, hey, I need a mental health guest.
Excellent.
So,
Definitely
yeah,
be in the show notes.
That's again, way more business advice than you asked for, but that's
well, no. That's great, because the next question that I have is, what's one business or life decision that worked out super positive? And it sounds like you mostly already covered that 3 times. But if you've got another one, now would be the time.
I do, and it is rather
Super.
odd, and it is the subject of my 4th TEDx talk.
Okay.
The TEDx talk is called "Suicide: The Secret of My Success." Dead Man Talking.
I've seen that. I saw that. Yes.
And
that is excellent talk.
Thank you. And when I'm coaching my TEDx coaching clients, people go, "What do you coach for TEDx?" Well, here's the thing. TEDx curation teams, the event, they get 100, 200 applications. And so you have to stand out. And one of the first things they ask on almost every application is, what is your idea worth spreading? And they want either title, subtitle, 1 or 2 sentences, or a 10-word elevator pitch. And so one of the things that I do that's most valuable to my clients is make sure whatever goes in those first couple of boxes is intriguing. Title, it doesn't really quite make sense or raises a question in the mind of the person who's reading it, so they have to read the subtitle to see what's going on. And if I can get them that far, they often read the description, because the next thing is like a 250-word description. And if I get them that far, they're pretty much hooked. And then the next paragraph is generally, why are you the person that should be delivering this?
Yeah.
And Suicide: Secret of My Success, Dead Man Talking, they call me up. I think I applied 6 different TED Talks. The 6th one called me and said, you're on. I go, I got an audition? No. You're on stage.
You passed the audition. You've already moved past that.
Yeah, they love the title, Suicide: Secret of My Success, counterintuitive, Dead Man Talking. It's play on words from Dead Man Walking.
Yep.
Yes, and it was suicide that got me into comedy, because this is one of the things that turned out really well that could have gone either way. I by the way, before I tell you the story, I've met innumerable entrepreneurs and entertainers, creative types, who had the same basic mindset, same basic thought process.
Okay.
Well, I read 2 studies on entrepreneurs, and it said 1/3 of entrepreneurs are depressed and suicidal. And they determined it was because of little sleep, long hours, unmet expectations. And I believe in a lot of cases that's true. But I believe there's a significant subset of entrepreneurs who are not depressed and suicidal because they are entrepreneurs. They, in fact, are entrepreneurs because they were depressed and suicidal. And here's how.
Okay.
I was married to my high school sweetheart, high school and college sweetheart. We had a wonderful woman. We had nothing in common, but opposites attract. She was pregnant, I wasn't. And so we got married, and we were both miserable. And then I was selling insurance, which was her idea of what I should be doing, because her whole family was in insurance. And so I was miserable and married. Figured out I'm not really married to the right person. In insurance, I felt like I was walking around somebody else's life. Great business, but not for me. And
Mm-hmm.
because I have major depressive disorder and chronic suicidal ideation, it runs in my family. It's called generational depression and suicide. Because of that, I realized I was suicidal. That if I didn't make a change, and a big one shortly, sooner rather than later, I was going to kill myself. So my second thought was very empowering. Well, wait a minute. If I'm going to kill myself, what have I got to lose? I could divorce my wife, quit my job, try comedy, which is where I really thought I belonged since the fourth grade. And and if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, Tad, I can still kill myself. So it's like standing on the edge of a cliff and there's a brush fire coming up behind you. And there's a beautiful lake down below you and it's deep, but it's 10 stories down. So you're going to hit terminal velocity on your way. You can
Mm-hmm.
stand there on the cliff and burn to death, which is where I was with wife, insurance, and so forth, or you can jump and hope to hit well and swim away. Could die, but you're definitely going to die if you stay put. So,
So what's to lose?
yeah, and there are a few things on this planet more powerful than someone with absolutely nothing to lose. And to be able to put
Yeah.
your entire life on one roll of the dice because you believe in what you should be doing. And when I did my first open mic night, middle of my set, 5 minutes, in my head I heard, I'm home. And my second thought was, I'm going to do this for a living. I have absolutely no idea how,
But you're going to do it. That would be great. I mean, I wish I had that voice sometimes. But I want to tell everybody that highly recommend that TED Talk that you mentioned. Watch the full thing. It was one of the most empowering TED Talks that I've seen.
Oh, thank you.
Because the idea that came to me while you were telling your story, an expanded version of your story, is basically, what do you got to lose? And in my mind, it clarified how small some of the blocks I put in front of me in business and in life really are. I mean, it's just, really, I stopped because of that. Anyway, highly recommend that talk. Really, really good.
And I was talking to a client of mine, a new client of mine last night, referred by somebody else in an essay. He's a leadership speaker, leadership trainer, and he wants the keynote.
Mm-hmm.
And he also wants to do a TEDx talk. And we were chatting last Friday, just kind of a, get to know you chat. And he'd seen my TEDx, he got referred to me and then saw the TEDx talk you're talking about. And he goes,
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. Because I was transfixed. And I go, really? He goes, yeah, because Frank, that's something you and I share, is that I reached that same crossroads. If I continue doing what I'm doing, and he was age 40, I think, I'm going to kill myself. So my second thought was, well, wait a minute. What have I got to lose? Well, he lost him. His wife divorced him. There is collateral damage sometimes when you make up. But his TEDx talk, Tad, is going to be, what if who you are is not really who you are? The idea being that you have been fulfilling everybody else's expectations of who you are.
Yes, absolutely.
And you come to the point, you go, wait a minute. And the guy I talked to after that, a former Lutheran minister for 25 years, will probably become a client long term. Same story. He became a Lutheran minister. Those were the expectations. He did what a Lutheran minister does.
Supposed to do, right.
Yeah, they thought, well, maybe I need to change churches. Maybe that's why I'm not happy. Change churches and still unhappy. Change this.
Didn't work. Yeah.
Finally, just said, okay, this obviously is not for me. And he got to the point where he was suicidal, and he made a huge shift. So suicide, you're saying, what decision did you make? What, that thought of, I'm going to kill myself if I don't do something different, that made all the difference.
Okay. And again, excellent TED Talk. One of the best I've ever seen. Please go watch that. Next question.
Yeah.
And this is one that I run into myself, as well as hear other people, or actually hear it in what other people are saying, but they don't actually say it. They get stuck, and they don't know they're stuck. A lot of people do know they're stuck, but they don't know what to do. I mean, something as simple as writer's block, I get all the time because I write a lot of copy, but there's bigger pieces to that. Like I'll have a to-do list and there are just some tasks I just won't start because I don't want to. It's a big thing. I'm stuck. I don't know if you've ever been there, but if you have, how do you get by that?
Gamification and half-hour power.
Ah,
When you
love
have
it.
mental illness, you have to have two things, I believe. A self-care plan. Mine is diet. I'm on the keto diet and I fast. Exercise. I've got an old Nordic track behind this lovely green screen, and it's so old it's cold.
Yay.
People don't recognize it. I'm thinking about hanging some laundry on it. So everybody, oh, it's a Nordic track.
He's a Nordic track.
Yeah. Diet, exercise, good night's sleep, meditation, and in my case, medication. The other thing I do is two techniques. One is gamification. The other is half-hour power. So here's the deal. If I'm having trouble starting something or doing something, or just getting out of bed, I make a to-do list of 6 things. And the game is, when I scratch off number 6, I can go back to bed, pull the covers over my head, and binge watch Netflix because I win. I don't care
because you got it.
Broad daylight. It's a game. And the half-hour power is this. I've discovered I can do just about anything for half an hour. So I just did my taxes, the quarterly, where you calculate up your expenses and, well, not a lot of income. That was
easy. No, I know that piece.
Yeah. So, but what I do is, if I've got a task like that, it has to get done. I'll do a half hour on taxes and actually set the alarm on my phone. I hit the timer for 30 minutes. It goes off. I stop doing taxes. I go do anything else on the list I want. Cut the grass, clean the kitchen, and dang, at 30 minutes, I'm back to taxes. Every other half an hour is taxes until those are done. Every other half an hour is whatever is, the fire in the trash can. The thing needs to be taken care of right now.
Right. Yeah.
So with the gym's 25 minutes away when I could go to the gym. And again, the longest mile is from my bedroom to the car. Okay. And the game is, if I go to the gym, I get to the gym, I only have to do 1 rep of 1 exercise and I can turn around and go home. So the pressure's off. And I've only used that once. I was in Chicago, 12th of March, right before this world came crashing down. And I went down to the little gym at the Hilton, which was really nice. They had an elliptical runner, which is my favorite. I got on that thing and I thought, man, I'm so tired from traveling. I thought, okay, here we go. I did 1.5 minutes and then went, I'm done. I win. Went to bed. Next morning, I got to 1 hour. But that's the game. The game allowed me to get on there, get to the gym, and then for the first time ever, I exercised the option to win and went to bed. So it's gamification, and the half-hour power is how I tend to get things done.
And I use a variation of that, so I can attest to that. That is awesome. One of the things that I've added to mine and I almost am embarrassed to admit it, but it works for me, is on my to-do list, I scratch things out when I'm done. Mm-hmm. But after I do that, I put a little X beside it. And something in me about seeing or doing that little X is just, yeah, got it. I don't know. And I say, try it,
Yeah.
Once you scratch something off, scratching it off is great, but put a little X by it. It works for me. And it's a gamification thing. So yeah, I get that. And I highly suggest that other people look at that. If they're getting stuck, look at those 2 things, because I have time slots as well, but then I also gamify. So super.
Well, on that subject, those 3 things I just told you about, the self-care plan, gamification, and half-hour power. I don't know if you know this, but entrepreneurs, small business, 40% of the GDP in this country, which is huge. And many of them are suffering from the pandemic. And I think a lot of neurotypical or neuronormal people have what they call situational depression. And part of the danger is they've never been depressed. So they have no idea why they're feeling the way they're feeling.
Exactly. Yes.
So I always recommend get a mental health, like a telemental health, checkup, and also get a physical if you can do it, if you can do it live, because sometimes physical ailments present as mental health symptoms.
Right.
And then, which is what I told you, self-care plan, diet, exercise, good night's sleep, medication, and meditation. And medication, just short term, just get through this pandemic. It's fine. You're not gonna be on the rest of your life. And the other thing is, and this is for self-employed people. It took me years to get this down. Schedule. You need a schedule. Go to bed at the same time, get up the same time, meals roughly the same time, plan your exercise. That's what they had a guy in the space station for a year by himself, except when they brought groceries up. And they go, how did you handle that social isolation for a year? He said, one word, schedule. He just stuck to a schedule, just every day. Went to bed same
Yeah,
time.
that is one of the biggest things that I struggled with whenever I quit working for corporate
Mm-hmm.
America is the lack or loss of structure. And what a
Yes.
lot of people at home don't realize, working from home, working for themselves, don't realize is just going into an office and having a building to sit in, structure.
Yeah.
It is more structure than you realize. And even the little things I noticed over the years that, so as long as I have some kind of structure and, I have an exercise routine, I get to bed relatively the same time every night. If I don't do that, I get off and it messes with the entire rest of my day and my schedule. So highly suggest that as well.
Well, and here's the downside
Um,
here's the downside of being independently wealthy, right? Being working for myself.
independent, just say independent. That's good enough.
Yeah, I'm independent. I'm a contractor. Is that I had this problem when I went to the chamber meetings because there's a lot of multi-level marketing folks in the chambers.
Oh yeah,
And
ton of those folks.
I mean, I don't want to comment one way or the other on multi-level marketing, but they figure because I'm working from home and I don't have a job. Well, you could do this. You could just on the side. You could just do it a couple hours.
Yeah.
And I have to tell them. I said, listen, I love you dearly. However, every hour, even those 2 or 3 hours you're talking about a week that I work on this multi-level marketing platform, are 2 or 3 hours a week that I'm not working to get myself booked to speak. Yeah, but you can make a lot of money. I go, you don't know what my fee is. Well, what do you charge for a 45-minute keynote? $7,500 to $15,000. Oh, now if your multi-level marketing company can pay me that kind of dough for 45 minutes to an hour, I'm in. But otherwise, the ROI, you always have to calculate, the ROI for that time. There's a great book,
For your time.
80-20
Yeah.
rule, where he says, if you're someone like me or you, we should not be doing $10 an hour work.
Exactly.
We should sub that out to Fiverr or Upwork or whatever. We need to be doing the $100, $200, $300 an hour work or marketing for something even bigger. So
Absolutely.
more information than you ever want.
No, this is great stuff. And in very similar ways, I've run into many, if not all of the same things that you've mentioned. I mean, it's managing time. And it's not managing time. That's because I learned this. I can't remember where I read it, but it was in a book. And the person that wrote it said, it's not time management. There is no such thing as time management. It's decision management.
Yes.
You've got to manage your decisions. If you manage your decisions, time will take care of itself. And that has helped me a lot as well.
Well, and another piece of business advice involving multi-level marketing. If I all of a sudden could not speak for a living,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody said, look, you got to do something else, and it's got to be multi-level marketing. Okay. I would sell something called Legal Shield. It used to be called prepaid legal.
Yep.
And I got to tell you, and now it's like Legal Shield and ID Shield. The two of them together are less than buying LifeLock or whatever.
Yeah.
I was already paying for it. That thing, Legal Shield is. I don't sell it because the woman who got me into it has been after me for years to sell it. I said, no, again, I can't take the time away from my core business, but it has saved me. It saved me enough that in my mind, it saved me enough that I'm not really paying that $60 a month subscription for the next 5 years because that's how much money
it saved you.
It saved me. I had to get rough with the Speakers Bureau who wasn't going to pay me half the deposit that I was due. I had a dog. We have dogs, and we bought doggy insurance, and we had an argument with the insurance company over pre-existing conditions. And I said, well, listen, send me the name of your legal department and the address, and I'll have my attorney call you. And the next day, before I even called the attorney, my Legal Shield attorney, I got a call. Frank, listen, we talked about that, and we think you're right.
It works. It really
Yeah.
does. I mean, and that's the real similar way to where or how I've used ours in the past. And it just, and I've written maybe 3 letters, but it's saved way more than those 3 letters ever would have cost.
You know, I told you about the fire when we were off the air. We had a wildfire
Right.
nearby. We had smoke damage, and I'm thinking about having to fight, go to you know, fisticuffs with State Farm because they're going to want to do, you know, the basics, and I'm going to want to do more. And I
Right.
thought, how am I going to handle this? And I thought, oh, no, because that first letter from your legal shield attorney is free.
Mm-hmm.
And insurance companies are terrified of attorneys because I used to work for one. As soon as that piece of stationery crosses their desk, all of a sudden they're a lot more accommodating.
But they're paying attention.
Yeah, so having that legal shield attorney in my pocket, I tell you, I sleep a lot better at night. So I'm not, I mean, I don't sell it. I don't get any. I'm not getting any money out of this. I'm just telling you that's the one. That's something else I wish I'd done years ago.
Yep, great, good advice, and I take that myself. Okay. Lastly, if you had to start over from scratch, from a business perspective, given legal shields out there, what, and whether you would do legal shield or not, but what would you do different? I mean, I know mine personally, and I would start sooner. But other than that, is there what in your world you would do different if you were starting from scratch and you knew everything you know now?
I would go to the police academy.
To the police academy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
Didn't expect that one. No, I'm waiting for the explanation because that's a good one.
Yeah, well, it's on my bucket list. There are 2 things left on my bucket list. Only 2. Okay. One is I want to be a warm-up comic for a sitcom or game show or late night talk show in LA because I've got the personality for it. You're not really doing comedy. You're just being funny, not too funny because you don't want to overshadow.
Don't want to upstage the next. Yeah.
You get fired for that. But I'm a great MC. When I do comedy, I talk to the audience. That's basically the job. Point out the exits, bathrooms. Hey, nice sport jacket. There's a Pinto somewhere without seat covers. You know, that kind of thing. And I've always wanted to do it. And it pays crazy money. And you get to stay in LA and you meet showrunners, producers, directors, casting directors, actors. I mean, it's just
right.
Bananas. I have a networking keynote that I do occasionally. And anyway, when the last recession hit and we lost everything in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and I learned what the barrel of my gun tasted like. Spoiler alert, didn't pull the trigger. A friend of mine came up to me after a keynote. He never heard me say that. He goes, "Hey man, why didn't you pull the trigger?" I go, "Hey man, could you try to sound a little less disappointed?"
Yeah.
That, by the way, is where the mental health comedy comes in. Anyway, what I did was I thought, well, I need a good job with good benefits. And what I've always wanted to do, be a police officer. So we were living in the state of Washington. So I applied with 12 different departments in the state of Washington, including Seattle Parking Enforcement, which their test was the most difficult of any one I took. You know,
parking enforcement. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Tickets on them. They have little segways, and they roll around and put tickets on people's cars. And one of the questions on the test was, okay, you're going south on 4th. You turn east on Canal Street, and then right on Pennsylvania Avenue. Where are you? It's all I could do not to put on the piece of paper at the corner of how the hell and should I know? So I tried out with the Department of Natural Resources, the park rangers, and I did an oral board in the guy's office, and he goes, "You're not outdoorsman?" I go, "No, I'm more of an indoorsman, really. I love climate control." And then he points to this deer head that's mounted on the wall, you know, the rack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he says, "Frank, there are 3 kinds of deer in the state of Washington. What kind of deer is that?" And I looked up and I said, "I believe that's a quarter deer." And he goes, "No, it's a white-tailed deer." And I go, "How would I know that? It's in the other room." So needless to say, I didn't get that job.
But it was funny.
Oh, yeah. Oh gosh. Well, and I came, there's a fifth, and they had a 1,500 question psych eval for it to be a park ranger.
Wow.
And question number 766 was, have you ever considered suicide? Again, it's all I could do not to write on the paper. Yes, about question 500, I wanted to open a vein. But I didn't. but I didn't get. But Seattle, I got down to the point where you're on the short list. You have to pass you can't discriminate based on age. If you can pass the physical fitness test, the law enforcement physical fitness test, they have to consider you for hire. And I passed that test 4 times. I'm the oldest person ever to pass the physical fitness test, and I was 52. So in Seattle, I was on the short list. And they give you a lie detector test. And I wish I could tell you the question. There's a question on there that's been on there apparently for 30 years because I told a joke one time and the guy came up, Frank, I'm retired. I was in the police force 30 years, and that question was on my
it was on my test too.
My polygraph. Yeah, basically they ask you, have you ever had sex with a farm animal, comma, if only by accident? I said to the examiner, look, I know I'm not supposed to say anything, and I understand the first half of the question. It's the disclaimer that fascinates me. Anyway, and they give you a psych test, a fitness test, and then 2 detectives come to your house unannounced to see what your home life's like. I'm working a cruise ship somewhere, knock on the door Monday morning, 8 o'clock. My wife goes to the door, and there are 2 detectives there at the door. And my wife says this, oh, look, 2 detectives in my front door first thing in the morning, just like old times. Come on in. Yeah. And then they went through all the benefits and everything, medical, dental, vision, and then told her, Mrs. King, every police officer in Seattle has $1 million in life insurance from a variety of sources. Do you have any questions? She goes, yes, I do have a question. They said, what's your question? She said, $1 million? They said, yes, $1 million. What's your question? Does he have to wear the bulletproof vest? Yeah, so
it's funny.
Yeah. Well, and here's the deal. My training officer said to me, Frank, look, it's nothing personal. 3 years ago, these jobs, nobody wanted them. But with the kids coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, we have tons of it. 3 years ago, we would have taken a shot at a 52-year-old guy going to the academy because the police department has to pay for the academy and pay the cadet. Yeah. So 3 years ago, you'd have the job. And but because you had so many applicants, that it's probably a good thing. I still have fantasies about maybe when I'm 63, but up the road here in Junction City, I know the chief of police. We're friends.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, and I said to him, listen, Bob, as soon as the pandemic hit and my speaking bookings fell off, I called Bob. I said, listen, if I have to get a job, would you hire me to be a police officer? And he goes, Frank, qualified. He goes, you'd have to spend some time with our psychiatrist because, I'm suicidal. He goes, I'm not worried about you shooting somebody else with the gun I gave you. I'm worried you're going to shoot yourself with the gun I gave you. So, but I imagine if I took the psych eval with the psychiatrist, I have a feeling the psychiatrist would go, look, Bob, hire the guy. For God's sakes, he's the most positive suicidal person I've ever met.
Yeah, I've ever met.
Yeah. So anyway, that was what I wanted. If I could do it again, although I do dearly love comedy, I think that's where I belong. But let's say if I couldn't do comedy or speak, Frank got to pick something else. Definitely.
Then that's where it goes.
Yeah, I would have gone into law enforcement.
Right.
And because I just think, and somebody with a comic, a comedian as a cop. Oh dear God.
That would be awesome. I think that would be awesome.
Well, they said to me in one of the oral boards, Frank, people scream awful things at police officers constantly. Do you think you could handle that? Dude, I've been a comic for 24 years.
I'm on stage, man.
Yeah, beer bars, pool halls, honky tonks, drunk idiots screaming, tell us some jokes we can dance to. Nothing. Yeah, nothing I haven't heard. Trust me, and I don't have a comeback for. F you, not even for practice. So it's I just thought, and then I told my training officer, he goes, well, Frank, you're 52. Project your career for me. I go 5 years in a radio car with a partner, and then 5 years. And while I'm doing that, I want to train and be the guy in this big stuffed suit for the canine training. You got to volunteer to get into the program. You have to be the perp for a while, and then 5 years in the car with a dog. And he goes, wait a minute, you're 62 at this point. I go, I know. I can do that. What are you going to do at 62? I'm going to go into the public relations department of the Seattle Police Department and work my way up to the public relations guy for the Seattle Police Department. He goes, why? I said, can you imagine a comedian taking questions from the press?
Yeah, doing the PR stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I said, I speak in sound bites. You know, some idiot from Channel 5 asked a question. Oh, yeah, I remember my first beer. Sit down. I mean, I'd be on the news every night with something, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that would be, if I couldn't do comedy or speaking, I would be, I think I was born to be a police. I just have that. And one of the oral boards asked me, what's the connection between policing and comedy? I said, well, think about this. We're both paid observers. We notice things that nobody else, you know, they see it, but they don't take note of it. That's how comedians write jokes, is they're noticing things constantly that other people just walk right past. Or hear something. I'm on a plane, a Delta flight out of Atlanta, and they've just changed the rules so that you can use your iPad or iPhone on takeoff or landing if it's in the airplane mode. Now, the flight attendant's got a problem. That's not written down anywhere. Brand new. So she goes through the regular, you know, in the South, Delta flight attendant, oxygen mask, 4-path lighting, seat cushions. She gets to the part where she's got to tell us about the iPad and the iPhone, and she freezes. You can almost hear her thinking. And then she gets inspired. And she goes, ladies and gentlemen, due to new FAA regulation, if you have large equipment, you can continue playing with it. No, yeah, I'm doubled over. And my seatmate thinks I've lost my mind. Nobody else on the plane is laughing. Guess what? I go, that's
No, they didn't. Oh, I would have saw that one. I would have, yeah, that one I would have been cracking up.
That's the connection between policing. I mean, my wife and I were driving to drop off a car to get work done. And we're coming home. And she goes, yeah, I'm worried about this kid I saw this morning. I said, black hat, black outfit, bicycle sitting on the curb. And she looks at me, and because I drove by him at 35 miles an hour, but I in my brain picked all that up as I'm going by. She goes, that's amazing. I go, well, I notice things. Yeah. Here's the best. I also like to guess. I guess where you were from, I was completely wrong. I guessed Georgia or Tennessee.
Yeah, you were close. It's
West
close.
Texas. But about 75% of the time, I am spot on. And I was at the border, and the Customs Border Patrol guy is looking at my, come back in the U.S. And he's looking at my passport, and I'm looking at him. He's African American. His name's Thomas. He said a couple of words, and I said, Mr. Thomas, you're from Georgia. And he freezes. And he goes, yes, but how could you know that? I said, you're asking the wrong question. The question you need to be asking is, why don't you have a comedian at every port of entry in this country watching and listening to people going by? I'm telling you, we do it for a living. So yeah, I've freaked people out before. They look at me like, yeah, I was born there, but how?
But you noticed stuff. You noticed stuff.
I got in the cab. I looked in the guy's eyes, looked at the side of his face. He said a couple of words. And I don't even know where this country is. It's like, it's from Malcolm Gladwell, has a book called Blank. You just go with whatever pops into your head, about intuition. I say, hey, man, you're from Azerbaijan. He slams on the brakes. I go flying into the screen back. He goes, are you CIA? No. No, nobody guesses Azerbaijan. Nobody. It's a hobby.
I do it for fun.
Yeah. I know we're going way past your 15 or 20 minutes, but it's your inaugural episode,
This is our inaugural, this is our launch, so that is super cool. I do need to cut it off because I got another one coming up though.
Oh, that's right.
Really appreciate your time. This has been awesome. For the first episode, couldn't have been any better. Is there anything that we can do for you that you would like to tell the audience? Do you have any things coming up, any events, anything that you're doing that they would benefit from?
Yes. First, I want you to tell your next guest, let me just tell you something. Thank your lucky stars you didn't have to follow Frank King live. If you want to find me, thementalhealthcomedian.com. And if you put in an email address there, you can download the first of 4 books that 2 people and I are writing on men's mental health, because 8 out of 10 people who die by suicide are men. You can download the MP3 for free, and I voiced it. I narrated it. And if you'd like to do a TEDx, you can contact me through the email, or it's yourtedxcoach.com is the site, Your TEDx Coach, if you're thinking about doing a TEDx. So
okay. Excellent. Outstanding. Frank, thanks again. Really appreciate that. Thanks to everybody for listening in. Have a safe and productive week, and be the very best that you can be at whatever you're doing. Until next time, this is Tad Stevens, Micro Success Secrets. Bye for now.